Welcome to Bon Vivant Chic, Life Well Lived, the podcast for anyone who wants to cut through today's noise and just listen for a few minutes to meaningful conversations on the human experience and the power of connectedness. I'm your host, Ernestine Morgan, an advocate for kindness with a passion for showcasing human interest stories that matter. Today, I'm delighted to spend some time with David Habib. David and I met through my work at Morton Plant Mease Healthcare Foundation and quickly discovered our many connections. David is the founder of Yo Mama's Foods, which he launched in 2017 and has since grown into a nationally recognized brand, offering pasta sauces, condiments, cooking wines, and protein pastas, all made without sugar, fillers, or preservatives. I have to admit, I'm especially partial to the marinara sauce and Greek dressing. Today, Yo Mama's Foods is sold in over 25,000 stores nationwide and distributed in nearly 20 countries around the world, making it one of the fastest growing clean label brands in its category. The brand was featured on Good Morning America, which is an exciting milestone and a testament to the impact and momentum behind the company. So let's get started. Thanks so much for sitting down with me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
Can you please share a little bit about where you grew up and what life was like?
I grew up here in beautiful Clearwater, Florida. My parents were actually born in Cairo, Egypt, both of them, and they were next door neighbors when they were growing up. My father moved to Ohio in the 80s and started working for Baycare. He came down, I believe, in a February in winter and flew into Tampa Airport and said, you know what, this is going to be home. Mom moved to France and studied medicine and reconnected with my father. They got married and settled here in Clearwater. I was born in Phoenix, but I grew up here. Life was really special. I had great role models for my parents. They were hardworking. My mom had such a unique way of bringing people around the table. So that was a big inspiration for my life, and really her ability to bring people around the table through good food is ultimately what inspired me to start Yo Mama's Food. Growing up in such a beautiful spot, I think a lot of us who grew up here don't know how beautiful it is until you leave. Our childhood is really outside. I have an older sister, Michelle, and my mom didn't really let us play with video games or watch too much TV. We would just have to go outside. We have a lot of fond memories just being outside. I played a lot of tennis when I was a kid.
Who had the biggest influence on you when you were young?
I was very fortunate to have a great mentor who I know you knew as well, Mr. Leeward Bean.
Oh, miss him.
I do too. I went to school with Kaylee, and ever since I was a kid, I always looked up to Mr. Bean. He was this larger than life, just amazing person. And he used to take us tubing as kids, and I really got to know him and got to understand how he operated his businesses. And I, of course, love his family as well. Mr. Bean, when I was little, actually told me about the 5 F's, and that's actually stuck with me throughout time. And that's faith, family, fitness, friends, and fun.
Aww.
And that was something that I thought was very relevant and something that you could take throughout any age of life. He had such a unique way of breaking things down and making them applicable to life. And I think he's a wonderful example of someone who lived a wonderful life.
What was your very first job and how did it shape you?
I worked for a tiling company here locally when I was 16, and I was always interested in entrepreneurship. From an early age, I knew I wanted to start a business. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. So I remember getting a cash register when I was in first grade, which was a great gift. I used to be interested with trade and commerce. I remember running some lemonade stands and some cookie stands. But the first real job I had was working with a tile company when I was 16, and that was for a summer. I think my parents instilled in me a really strong work ethic when I was growing up, and was focusing on if you want something, you have to work for it. And there's no freebies. There's nothing that's just given to you. Learning that from an early age and understanding the value of hard work is definitely something that I've carried throughout life as well.
That's wonderful. You've built an amazing business. What are some of the most rewarding moments while building your business?
We started small in 2017. We launched on Mother's Day and launched in my parents' dining room. When I graduated from school here in Clearwater at CCC, I went to go study at the University of Florida, studied business there, and then I worked for Deloitte Consulting for about 2 years after that in DC. And as I was working in corporate, I realized I wasn't feeling well. I was missing mom's homemade cooking.
Yeah.
And that was when I started to understand that so many packaged goods are complete junk. I was eating a different brand of pasta sauce. I was getting really bad heartburn. And I looked at the labels and it was filled with citric acid, potassium sorbate. It had so much added sugar, had all this excess sodium. And that was really what sparked the idea of this business of how do we create a clean, simple brand? How do we use ingredients that only you would have in your own pantry, right? A mom wouldn't knowingly give her kids a bunch of junk. Not all families today have the time to slow cook a really good sauce. That was really the inspiration behind everything, is how do we create this brand that uses only ingredients that mom has in her pantry? So I left DC. I came back here, moved in with mom and dad, who were kind enough to welcome me back home. And
How old were you at that point?
I was 24, and I would say ignorance is bliss. If I knew everything I knew today about packaged foods, I wouldn't have had the courage to ultimately do it. That's the beauty of entrepreneurship, is you want to know just enough to take the risk, but you don't want to know too much, because just like all things in life, fear can be a good motivator or it can be something that ultimately holds you back. I didn't let us hold us back. We were going up against all of the big boys, still are today, but really started small. Went from the dining room to a storage unit on US 19. We had about 10 high schoolers who were packaging our Amazon boxes after football practice. And at that time, we got into Whole Foods. I remember when we got into Whole Foods, we were operating out of a 300 square foot storage unit.
Oh, wow.
We didn't have electricity. We used to use my car lights to be able to see at night. That was really the start. We stayed rooted in Clearwater, moved to an old office on Lakeview, growing the business, kept investing every single dollar back into it. And today we ship to 25,000 stores. We export to 20 countries, and we're a top 10 brand in the United States on syndicated data for pasta sauce.
That's amazing. Yeah. I also have heard from other entrepreneurs that getting a product on grocery store shelf and where it's located is a big deal. What was that like?
It's really the most expensive real estate in the world, because these grocery stores, every single inch in the grocery store is dollars for that store. There's a term that anyone in consumer packaged goods or in grocery knows, but it's velocity, and that's really your speed off of shelf. If Publix is basically giving you 8 slots on their shelf, they want you to hit a certain unit per store per week, per SKU, and that's how they can ensure that the stores are producing enough revenue to cover their own overhead. Getting into groceries is extremely competitive. You're going up against all these massive multinational corporations who are very, very hesitant to give up their own space. And ultimately, it's a very expensive game as well. There's something called slotting. Once you celebrate a win and Whole Foods takes you, you have to pay for that shelf space. And again, all things that I didn't know when I was entering into the consumer packaged goods world. These are important lessons for anyone who wants to get a product into retail stores, is you don't just get into the store, you have to pay for it. So that comes in slotting, where you're giving dollars for that space, or it comes through free fill, which you're giving one free case per store per SKU to each store. So when we got into Whole Foods, I remember that was almost $150,000 for us, 3 SKUs to get into Whole Foods nationally. And at that time, as a small business, that's a substantial sum of money.
Well, nerve-wracking, huh?
And those are all lessons that every brand owner and every business has to plan for, because ultimately the goal is to grow it and to scale it. In order to do that, you have to have a plan in place.
I remember when I first saw your product, it was at our local Bel Air Market.
Yeah.
And then I saw it at Publix.
Yes.
I guess it's been a couple of years now. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. All great stores. And I think starting locally is another important piece too. I remember our first sale was to Bradley at Local Market in St. Pete. He now runs Mazzaro's Market in St. Pete. Shout out to Bradley for giving us a chance. And that's what it comes down to, is I love this podcast. I love its theme. And it's really about people who are here to make life better. And there's so many no's that every entrepreneur hears. There's so much negativity in the world. There's so much division, but there's actually a lot of good. And that good comes from people who are intentionally trying to make life better. And I will never forget those people who gave us a chance. I still keep in contact with all of them. And you never know what impact that has on someone's life. And saying yes completely changed the trajectory of our business. It changed the trajectory of my own life. And it's provided an opportunity for us to employ 30 people here in Clearwater, to build a global headquarters here. When they say that one person can't change the world, I don't believe that, because people can change the world every single day. And it's in those small actions that they do that they can never really see the ultimate ripple. That's where amazing things happen.
Touche. Yeah. You're like an old soul.
For sure.
Have people told you that?
Oh, yeah. Actually, it's funny. Vicky, who's on our team, she got interviewed about our company for, I think it was the Tampa Bay Business Journal, and they asked her to describe me, and she said, young man, old soul.
Back in 2011, I listened to an interview with Barry Estabrook, who wrote Tomatoland. And he shared a story about driving down one of our freeways here in Florida, and a truck was in front of him, and these tomatoes fell out of his truck and they bounced across the freeway.
Yes.
And he's like, oh my God, what is that? You just can't imagine a tomato bouncing down the road. And it was an impetus for him to write this book. And in the book, he talks a lot about industrial farming and how it has destroyed our crops.
Yes.
We've all experienced going to the grocery store and trying to buy tomatoes and you can't taste them.
Correct.
Then it's really hard to find tasty tomatoes. So what do you do? How important are tomatoes to your business, or does it matter?
It does. Absolutely. There's so many different types of tomatoes. Florida is a huge producer of tomatoes, but there's no processor of tomatoes in the state of Florida. There's no companies that would de-seed them or take out the skins. In the state of Florida, there's a surplus of tomatoes, and many of them end up going to cow pastures because there's basically not enough demand for the crop that we build here in Florida. Very complicated business too, but that's really how we're different. We use fresh California Roma tomatoes. We purchased our tomatoes from the largest tomato processor in the world out of Los Banos in California. Tomatoes is really at the core of everything that we do. Using a U.S. grown crop is really key to us. A lot of our competitors will use a San Marzano tomato from Italy, which is a wonderful type of tomato, but it comes in a number 10 can. Yeah. And that's something that's different from how we produce, and something different to our brand as a whole is we really wanted the product to taste homemade. And you can't ultimately get that true homemade flavor out of a can. Typically, that can also is loaded with a lot of sodium. That's how they preserve it. From the very beginning, we started to source these California Roma tomatoes and quickly realized that was not a sustainable business. Yeah. It's very expensive. And that's really where I had to make a very critical decision. I either grow through scale or I start cutting corners. And if I started to cut corners, then we'd be like every other pasta sauce on the shelf. We didn't go down that route, but we work with the same tomato farm supplier that we started with in 2017. We'll purchase anywhere from 18 to 24 truckloads of tomatoes a month.
Wow.
A whole bunch of tomatoes. Yes. A very important piece to a recipe, and having that USA crop, having the fresh California Roma, that's what makes our sauce what it is.
Definitely tasty and delicious.
Thank
you.
I
love it. It's a staple in our cabinets, and I either get it online or I go to Publix. I know there have been a lot of pivotal moments, decisions that changed the course of your life, including starting Yo Mamas. Is there one that really stands out to you?
I think really having faith in yourself. And if you have an idea and if you have something that's kind of itching at you, a lot of people call it the universe. I call it God. But ultimately, I think life is short. And I think there's a saying that I love, which is memento mori in Latin. It basically means remember you must die. And as morbid as that is, that's really been a really big driving force for me throughout my life, is understanding that life is short. I've been healthy. I've had a wonderful upbringing. I've been very, very blessed. I think that's an important piece in life, is to realize that time is really the most valuable asset that all of us have, and that no one knows when our end is. That's been a huge driving force for me. That's really driven me to want to make life as impactful as I can.
That's wonderful. What are some misconceptions that people may have about young entrepreneurs?
I have two different groups of people. One, they're asking if I still make sauce at home, like how is it going? And I tell them I've never made sauce at home because in order to sell it to major retailers, you have to have FDA standards.
Right.
And then there's the other group, which is really interesting, come about from the Shark Tank era that we live in. I think in America specifically, they make entrepreneurship packaged into this, anyone can do it. And it's this very kind of glamorous, really sexy thing, right? You could be your own boss, you could do whatever you want. Really, that's far from reality. I actually preach the opposite. People ask me, oh, you're the CEO, you can run the business on the beach. But what every entrepreneur will tell you is that's anything from the truth,
sure.
right? And what I think is really important when I preach to other entrepreneurs is that it's a commitment and it's not for everyone. It's a choice, but you're very much sacrificing a lot in order to accomplish your dream and to do something that you want to do. There's so many people who want to be part of the outcome, but they don't want to be part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I think that a lot of young entrepreneurs see online. There's all these influencers and there's these kind of get rich quick, but what they don't see is the 30 years of blood, sweat, and tears and hard work and all of those sleepless nights and the struggles and the constant questioning and the imposter syndrome and all of the things that every single entrepreneur goes through. That's the reality. And it's not spoken about enough. Because again, we do a really good job of packaging entrepreneurship as this product that anyone can do, when in reality, it's a sacrifice and it's a commitment. And I know that you know that better than anyone.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's something that I try to educate people to is I would be happy to show them how hard I work and happy to show them all of the crazy things that go through my head and how every single day is different. And I love it. And that's the path that I chose. And that's what I feel like I'm called to do. There's absolutely nothing easy about it.
What lessons about family and relationships would you pass along to the younger generation?
I heard this recently and it's really stuck with me. It's become a theme of 2026. I was at one of my best friend's weddings and one of his friends actually spoke about this, and it's a quick phrase. There's no way to happiness. Happiness is the way. The concept of having it all, I believe, doesn't exist. And I think in America, there's such a push towards, oh, you can do it. You could be a great father. You could be a great business owner. But the reality is, yes, you can do that, but something has to give. And I think that's a really important theme in general is you can't give everything 120 hours a week.
Yes.
And that really struck me. In today's world, we're always climbing the next mountain. And there's the top of one mountain is the bottom of the next. There's this constant kind of mentality of you're always seeking something. And what I love about that phrase is happiness is the way. We're always so focused on the destination that really what I love about you and what I think you do so well and what I love about this podcast and just how you live your life is it's really about seeking happiness in every single day. And it's in every single moment. And when happiness is the way, then your life, your perspective is just different. And you're not constantly trying to attain something that you don't have. You're being present and you're being grateful for the life and the gifts that you ultimately do have. I would hope that I would have the blessing and the opportunity that when I settle down, that I would like to give my family the same commitment that I've given to the business.
I think that definitely resonates with me in particular now as I have reimagined what my life would be like. One of my key drivers has been to really take this time to be present because there is so much joy in the journey. It's not just what you've attained,
That's right.
but it's in the journey. And if you can stop and enjoy that part of it, it makes all of it so much more beautiful.
And it's much easier said than
It
done
is.
because we're also wired really from childhood, from schools, from everything to constantly be achieving something or constantly be striving for something. And I think that that's a huge challenge in the education system because myself included, having been a product of it, we're constantly teaching people that their jobs are their identities. And I think instead of asking kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? We should be asking them, who do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah.
I think that's so much more impactful and you're not educating a child's mind to be locked into their profession. You're educating them to be a good person and to see beauty in every day, to stop and smell the flowers.
Right, yeah.
And that's something that I think a lot of people are waking up to. My generation is kind of a hot mess.
But you recognize it. If that's the first step, they say, is recognizing it.
For sure. I think because we've been this generation that's been an experiment. We've had technology introduced to us in our adolescent phases, and we were exposed to just all these. Learning was so different once tech came in. Get any answer you want at the tip of your fingertips. So it stopped the whole encyclopedia and the whole learning phases. I think it trained us of this instant gratification of trying to constantly seek something and try to get it quickly. And as a result, that fast pace of life in many ways is something that everybody is challenged with. It doesn't matter what age or what generation, life moves pretty darn fast now.
It does.
I think if you don't really stop and have the ability to be introspective and question, am I living the way that I want to be living, then you get lost.
Yeah, and it rolls into my next question, which is, what are some life lessons you've learned that you wish you knew earlier?
It's so important to understand that everyone is the driver of their own ship. And I think when you really understand that you are the captain of your life and you're the captain of your own ship, you start to operate differently. And specifically, part of being a good captain is understanding who you want on your ship and who you need to throw overboard. And I think a really good lesson is so many times we spend all of our energy, all of our time trying to please people who shouldn't be on our ship. And that's something that I've learned, and something that I would pass on to anyone listening is it's better to have 4 quarters than 100 pennies. Having those 4 people, whatever it is, having those people, your flock of birds, your people who really believe in you, who will advocate for you, who are there for you, is something that everybody should seek, as opposed to 100 plus acquaintances or quote unquote friends or quote unquote family even. Part of being a good captain is really understanding that and being able to understand this person is weighing me down, or this situation or this company. And is it making you a better person, or is it weighing you down? And I think when you realize that you're in control of your own ship and that you absolutely have to choose, you have to pick a great crew and who's on your ship and who you need to throw overboard, then you start to drive life differently and really realize that you're in control.
Excellent. If you could give advice to a young person that was passionate about starting a business, what advice would you give that person?
I'm going to steal this from a fellow Clearwater entrepreneur as well, Sarah Blakely.
Sure.
I've loved to watch, but she said something, and I remember this early on when I was starting Mama's, was starting small, thinking big, and scaling quickly. And that actually came from Coca-Cola. We have to thank Coke for that. But that has really resonated with me. And what I try to help other entrepreneurs is whenever you have an idea, whenever you want to start something, starting small. We're here in this beautiful space and we're on a 4-foot table here. And I think that's amazing because good ideas have to start small. I think a lot of times people think of ideas as these big hurricanes of work when it doesn't have to be like that. And I think by starting small, then you're able to learn, you're able to pivot, you're able to rely on certain resources. Starting small, thinking big. Another reason why I love you is because you're such a big thinker and you always have great ideas. So that's such an important thing to also train your own mind, is if you're going to think big, think of the big impact, think of being able to do something amazing, and then scaling quickly. I think anyone in a product-based business, that's a really important piece. And something that I always tell people in consumer packaged goods is it's a volume business. You really have to scale quickly. You have to say yes to opportunities. If Walmart comes, Publix, Whole Foods, Kroger, all of them, they require a substantial amount of volume. If you're not able to handle the demand, then ultimately your idea won't be able to keep on growing.
You started with sauce. That was your main product.
Our hero product.
Now you've added quite a number of other products to go with the package.
Exactly.
Have you seen some challenges with that?
I would say there's always a challenge every single day. It's taught me to go an inch wide and a mile deep, and sometimes that's more important. When you're young as a brand, you want to do a lot quickly. And what you see from some of the legacy brands is that they do something smaller really, really well. And that's an important piece. As we've grown our innovation into multiple categories, we've actually slowed down and really focused in on what are we good at, what are we most known for, and how do we go deeper in that. And for us, that's pasta sauce. We launched with a line of clean white sauces about 2 years ago. We have pizza sauces, salad dressings, condiments, high protein pastas, clean cooking wines. We have a large assortment of really pantry staples, and that's our goal, is to very much be that household brand that people rely on.
That's terrific. I'm curious here what you think the secret is to a happy and fulfilling life.
I love it.
Young wise man.
This is a perfect tie back to what we were talking about earlier of there's no way to happiness. Happiness is the way. If everybody lives their life like that or just has that perspective, it really changes things, because instead of constantly trying to seek something or to acquire something that you think is going to make you happy, happiness is the way. It is a choice, and it's very much a mentality, and anything that you can do to harness that mentality and to really make sure that you're taking care of your mind, that's what I hope to pass on.
Wonderful. What keeps you motivated? Obviously, you've got your hands full.
Yes.
But what keeps you motivated every day? What's your routine?
Yes, I love activity. I do CrossFit Clearwater. I play a lot of pickleball. I've been doing calisthenics, I do sauna, I do ice bath. I think just health is truly wealth, and getting super into it. When I started the business, you're working 120 hours a week and you're working 7 days a week and you're exhausted, and you don't realize that you can only give what you have. And for years, I'd operated like that, and I got severely burned out in 2023 after living a life like that of just go, go, go. I was traveling everywhere on planes. We've had amazing opportunities. Good Morning America, Forbes, really amazing opportunities for our brand, but it wasn't sustainable. And I realized I wasn't taking care of my own mind and my own fitness and my own health. And I just hit a wall. I had brain fog. I was exhausted. I wasn't eating enough. And when I was working out, I wasn't eating enough to support working out. I was just drained. And I quickly realized then that I needed to make major changes. So now that's a priority. We're in the office very early. Most of us are in the office between 6:30 to 7. I have a lot of parents who work with us, which is great. A lot of baseball coaches, soccer coaches. Everybody's out of the office by 3:30 or 4 at the latest. Building that schedule into the company and ingraining that across the board has been an absolute game changer, because it's allowed my team to have a life after work. And as a result, everybody does amazing things after work. Personally, I work out from 4:30 to 10 p.m. every single day. I'm just playing pickleball, I'm swimming, I'm CrossFit.
Good for you.
Yeah, so I've been having a good time.
Good for you.
Yeah.
And what keeps you motivated in what you're doing with the business?
We have 30 people on our team full time. And then between all of our contractors and all of our manufacturers, there's roughly another 120 people who pretty much full-time working on our product. So that's a huge responsibility. It definitely keeps me motivated, is that this one small idea has now grown into this living, breathing entity. And that business is responsible for everybody's mortgage payments, car payments, college tuitions. That's a huge responsibility. So I would say that's one of my biggest motivating factors, is to make sure that everybody who has a role in the business is taken care of. That's a huge responsibility that I think every entrepreneur and every employer carries, and it's not something that I take lightly either.
Wonderful. I know there's so much push for companies to give their team members work-life balance. We've been talking about that for years. It is a challenge.
Yes, big time. And I think even within work-life balance, what does that even mean?
Yes.
Because to us, we're always like, our brains are just wired, and
Right.
we're always working, we're always doing something. But I think that's another important theme, is there's seasons in life. And I think a work-life balance today means being flexible to realize that your team has the ability to be free. I require our entire team to work in office. I personally can't do remote work. And I think it's important too to have a balance for what we're building, where you don't constantly have your work at your home. So I do ask a lot from them, but at the same time, they have freedom and trust to where they have to go pick up their kid at 1 o'clock, or if they have a doctor's appointment, I trust that they're going to get their job done. That rigidness that we saw in the workforce pre-COVID of, oh, it's a 9 to 5. And if you need to take a doctor's appointment, it has to be after work hours or pre-work hours. I think that culture is dying, which I think is good. But at the same time, freedom with responsibility, right? Now organizations are saying, I need you back in office, these big companies, because when people are on Zoom meetings all day, there's an element of disengagement that naturally comes because we are human beings,
absolutely.
Right? We can't be on Zoom calls 8 hours a day. It's exhausting.
Yeah. Your philosophy of taking care of your body, mind, and spirit
Absolutely
has resonated, and you can see in the impact it has on your business. When I toured a few years ago, is it factory or
sure.
office?
Yeah, office headquarters,
factory. You have a special room designated for quiet time.
Yes.
Right? Which is really beautiful. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So that's our chapel here at headquarters in the Clearwater building. And that's very intentional. It's really a space where people can go and, again, bringing it back to memento mori, understanding that life is a gift and time is short. And the most valuable thing that we have is to make the most of our life. I'm a religious person too, so obviously to get to the afterlife, I was born and raised, and I'm still a practicing Catholic, and that's an important guide in everything that I do. And that foundational principle of understanding your own mortality, I can't tell you how important that is, because that's such a driving force to my everyday, to my work, to how I view life, to how I hope to help and inspire others as well.
I love that. Thanks for sharing. What does philanthropy mean to you?
This is a great question because I think today philanthropy is very much almost like an advertising pillar of so many businesses. They have to show all the good that they do, which is wonderful. But I think there's a term that we all learned in business school of greenwashing or pinkwashing during Breast Cancer Awareness Month. It's very interesting. You actually see it when you check out in grocery stores. Like, what would you like to round up for this organization? What's interesting when you study that is that's going to the companies. And yes, the companies are writing a check, but they're also increasing their revenues by doing that. I think that philanthropy today for me is a way of giving back that is more so specific to not seeking attention and not seeking a benefit for an organization or for a group of people, but it's inherently has to come from the heart. And for us, we're shadow builders. I don't seek Good Morning America. I don't seek these types of opportunities. I like to be in the shadows a little bit, and that's how we've always built. But that's very much how we build on our philanthropic efforts. Is we're focused in on food scarcity. We have great partnerships with Pinellas Hope.
Wonderful.
Great partnerships with Feeding Tampa Bay and 360 Eats here locally. And I'm very intentional about keeping it here local. There's so many opportunities and there's so many needs throughout the state, throughout the world, throughout our country. But what a better way to show your community that you care than by doing it here locally. And I think that's an important piece of philanthropy too, is a lot of people think that has to be this big, massive thing, and it doesn't. You smiling at someone in the grocery store is special because someone's going to say, that person made my day. So it doesn't have to be constantly this gift of dollars or product or time. It can be, how do you treat others and how are you setting an example of who you are as a person? And you'll never know what that ripple effect is, but how can that inspire someone else to do good?
Thank you for your kindness.
Yeah.
Beautifully said. This has been great. It has.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sitting down with me.
Again, you're such an inspiration to many people, myself included. And I know I speak for many that you are a beam of light and life.
Love that.
Really, thank you for having me on this too. I love everything that you are doing. So thank you.
Wonderful. Spreading a little kindness.
Yes.
Right?
That's right.
Thanks for listening to Bon Vivant Chic, Life Well Lived. I hope you'll tune in for more meaningful stories on the human experience and share with family and friends. A special shout out to Will Cooper out of Nashville, Tennessee, for providing this season's music. All the episodes are available wherever you listen to podcasts, including my website, bonvivantchic.com. Till next time, remember, every day is a gift. Live it with kindness.